Welcome to the podcast about venture capital, where investors and founders alike can learn how VCs make decisions and reach conviction. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Welcome back to TFR for another edition of Investor Stories. On this segment, the experts talk about a startup that failed and the causes of that failure. Here's the segment called Post-Mortems. On today's special segment, we have Erik Torenberg of Village Global. Erik, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
I don't want to name a specific company, but I do want to name a pattern we see, which is because we're investing at accelerator stage or super early, sometimes we see co-founders break up just super early on. You'll make an investment and then a few weeks later, the co-founders will break up. And one thing we've learned to really stress test is how well the co-founders know each other. And that doesn't mean how many years they've known each other. It means how have they had the hard conversations that they need to have. If they don't have a CEO, we're not going to back them. You have to determine who is the CEO. If they haven't determined what success means for either of them, we're not going to back them. If we don't have a sense that they've been able to handle hard times together, even if they've known each other just over the duration of an on-deck program, for example, we're not going to back them. We're really interested in the strength of the co-founder relationship.
On today's special segment, we have Maren Bannon of January Ventures. Maren, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
I haven't had a portfolio company fail, but my biggest regret is actually not starting to angel invest earlier in my career when I was working in operating roles and when I was a founder. And I actually have seen the same pattern for a lot of successful women in my network. And even when I was back at Stanford Business School, when we were students, a lot of the men in my class were investing in each other. They were not afraid to ask each other. It was a no-brainer to just throw money into each other's things, even when many of them didn't have much money at the time. This same dynamic, though, just wasn't in place for women. There wasn't this social norm around investing in each other. And it was something that I expected would change over the last 10 years since graduating. And unfortunately, it really hasn't. And that was, I think, one of the aha moments for me in thinking about why I really wanted to set up a fund to support female founders and underrepresented founders. But also part of it is trying to get more women to see that they can invest and see role models doing it, see it become more of a social norm. And I think when you get more women actually investing, you end up funding more women.
On today's special segment, we have Shawn Carolan of Menlo Ventures. Shawn, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
Cinema Now, which was when we touched on a little bit earlier, was one, my very first board seat in 2004. They were streaming movies over the internet back then, and Netflix was still shipping DVDs. And let's see, they failed. I think of this is where, if you're really clear on the job to be done, you could see they weren't doing it. And the job to be done, I think of like, it's Friday night and I want to sit down with my wife and family and be entertained. And what did I used to do that? Well, I had to go to Blockbuster, drive 15 minutes, look at a bunch of movies. And with Cinema Now, because of the technology at that time, it was still a pain in the butt to do that. I don't want to watch the movie on the laptop. I've got to hook up all the cords to get it connected to my TV. I got to be kitty tech savvy. So it just didn't meet the need that it was most pervasive. And then you see what was the first killer app? It was actually Roku. Their very first device was called the Netflix player by Roku. So Netflix had built the whole service around streaming. The very early movies over the internet were like download, and they were wrapped in DRM. So it was usually like 10 or 15 minutes before I could even start it. And I think what Netflix did was get all of the rights in place such that they could start streaming these movies. And so I hit a button, the movie starts streaming. I have my Netflix player by Roku already hooked up to my TV. It cost me $99 and I'm watching a movie within 15 seconds. That's just a transformative user experience, even though Netflix didn't have as many amazing pieces of content as they do now. It was enough where, that experience was compelling. So, Cinema Now just didn't quite crack the code in time, and,
too early. On today's special segment, we have Lanham Napier of Bill Group. Lanham, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
We haven't been around long enough to have that yet.
Right.
Just lucky me, I guess.
Any angel investments that went sideways?
Yeah, so here's a lesson. So the first lesson was me not paying attention. The second lesson is me being a sucker. Okay. And so what happens is, like this whole entrepreneurial finance world with investors and stuff, it's the first question we should all ask ourselves is, why am I so lucky to hear this pitch today? Right.
Yeah.
And so there are a couple of times I've, kind of done the what my counsel calls the country club deal, right? Where it's, a bunch of friends say, hey man, this one's really good, blah, blah, blah. And, I end up saying, okay, I'm putting some money in without really doing my work, without really digging in. And that's never worked for me. The only time I've ever been successful on this planet is when I actually do the work. Yeah, I've never been lucky that I can remember. I got to go do the work. And so I think part of investing in general, part of investing in, early technology companies specifically is, we got to do the work, particularly around what can go right. Because I think, any company that we all look at, it's easy to say what can go wrong, right? I mean, liquor and leverage, that'll kill a company, right? That could go wrong. Yep. I mean, all sorts of stuff could kill a company. But the thing is to probabilistically determine what can go right and what can make it thrive. And then how to have an investment thesis and a plan to amplify that opportunity. To me, that's the thing I really try to get my head into in these things. And when I don't get my head into stuff, man, I miss, dude. It's ugly.
Well, and it's not just helping. When you do the work, it doesn't just help with the yes or no. But even with the yeses, when you're super deep in it, you can help so much more. You can broadcast, what you love about the startup. You can help other people understand why it's so special and what the upside is. It helps everyone involved to do the work.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
That will conclude this installment of Investor Stories. If you're enjoying the program and would like to see it continue, take a moment and leave a 5-star review in iTunes. Also, if you'd like updates on new content from TFR, as well as the top 10 VC articles every week, go to fullratchet.net and sign up for the newsletter. Okay, that will wrap things up for today. Until next time, over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for joining me.